Chapter 19 from the book called Ben Yokoyama and the Cookie of Doom. This is from the Cookie Chronicles, Book 1 by Matthew Swanson and Roby Bear. Chapter 19. Janet thundered out of the room and lightninged down the stairs. Ben watched through the window as she went out into the backyard and threw the rug into the black trash can where they put the leaves. Then she came back inside and flung herself onto the big blue chair, looking like a sooty, wet, smoldering forest when there's nothing left to burn. The big blue chair was so big that there was room for Ben to sit there beside her, so he did. "I'm sorry," said Ben. "I was rushing." He wanted to say, "I was rushing because there are thousands of squares in that rug and only 24 hours in this day," but he didn't. "You sure were." Ben didn't want to fight. "It's just a rug, right?" he said. "Who cares what color those flowers are?" "She'll care," said Janet with a sharp stab of a bee sting. "So would he, and so would he." She burst into tears like a water balloon slamming into a cactus. Ben didn't know what to do. He wasn't about to say it out loud, and he probably wouldn't even write it in a top secret diary if he had one, but he loved Janet. She was the non-parent person he cared about most, and she was having a really bad day. Ben pressed his elbow against Janet's elbow to remind her heart that he was there. Janet pressed her elbow back against Ben's to let him know that she wasn't done crying yet, but was doing her best and appreciated his patience. They sat there for a while, Janet sobbing, growing softer and slower, her breath becoming steadier. "It isn't just a rug," she'd said once she'd calmed down. "It's the rug my dad was making for my mom's birthday but never got to finish before he died." "Oh," said Ben. It was the first time Janet had ever talked about her dad. Ben had never known whether he was dead or just lived somewhere else, and never called. As he settled into knowing the truth, Ben turned sideways in the big blue chair and looked right at Janet. All he wanted to do was make her feel better. There he is looking at her. Janet wasn't looking at Ben. She was looking at the lamp, or maybe the wall behind the lamp. One morning, he was there at breakfast, she said. That night, Mom and I ate ham sandwiches in the hospital cafeteria. What happened? Car accident. Oh. Ben got a full body shiver of sadness. It was just awful. He couldn't imagine living even one day without both of his parents, let alone forever. Ben's list suddenly got longer, thinking of all the things he wanted to do with his mom and dad. He wanted to make it all the way to 50 in 50 or nothing with his dad. That was for sure. They were stuck at 45. He wanted to make at least 100 more cakes with his mom, and he hadn't even known he wanted to make one cake until they'd actually tried it. What about all the things he hadn't even thought to put on his list because he didn't yet know he wanted to do them? The thought gave Ben another full body shiver. "I'm pretty sure my dad didn't get a chance to live that day as if it were his last," said Janet, "because he didn't know." "How could he?" said Ben, pulling out the fortune and feeling so lucky to have it. Remember what that said. But you know what? Jen's eyes were just the smallest hint of its old familiar gleam. "What?" Ben asked, his heart picking itself just slightly from the floor. "I know how I'm supposed to live this day." Janet looked like her old self again. "And so I can." "You sure can," said Ben. "And so I will," said Janet. Stood up. She looked like she was ready to run a race. "The marshmallows and the balloons and stuff weren't my actual list." "They weren't?" "Nope. I was just trying to be a good sport because you were so excited about your fortune." "Thanks," said Ben, who felt a tiny bit tricked. "But there is something I really have always wanted to do." "What is it?" Ben was excited. It was time for the actual big thoughts. "Cut my hair." Janet's hair was long. "Why don't you?" "Look at how long it is." Janet's face got a look like she was taking an extremely tricky math test, but then she swallowed that face and put on a new face like the test was over and she'd gotten a B+. There's zero reason not to, she said, especially if this is my last day. Do it, said Ben. Not me, said Janet. What do you mean? You know what I mean. Ben knew what Janet meant, and he didn't like it. Uh-oh. Chapter 20. Janet picked up a magazine called Splash. She pointed to the picture of a girl whose haircut looked like the lopsided ring around Saturn. Janet handed Ben the scissors and gave him a "come on now, give me a haircut" face. But I don't know how to. You can do it. But what if it ends up looking terrible? Don't worry. I don't care. Even though Janet cared a lot about things that mattered, like keeping secrets and sticking up for Ben, she didn't give two hoots about things that didn't matter at all, like what kind of clothes you had on or whether you'd ever been to Hawaii. I don't know, he said. This could be the last day of my life, Ben said. Janet, I need a haircut, and you're the only one here. Oh, that's pretty scary. Ben thought about that. She was right. For the first time in his life, he was the best barber in the room. Janet needed him. He didn't want to let her down again. Plus, giving someone a haircut was another thing he'd never done. Ben had to admit it sounded kind of fun. He took out his list. Make Janet's hair look like the lopsided ring around Saturn. Hey, said Janet, and then she took another look at the photo and Splash. You maybe have a point, she admitted. Ben held the scissors like a pitcher holds a baseball. Where do I start? Anywhere, I think. Ooh, this does not sound like it's going to be working out. Do you see this girl's haircut? Uh-oh, that looks like a hard one. We'll see, we'll see. Ben started anywhere. At first, he made tiny, cautious snips, cutting only a few hairs at a time. But Janet was impatient. The last day of our lives is racing by, she insisted. There's no time for hesitation. Right, said Ben, picking up the pace a little, but still going about as quickly as an earthworm runs a marathon. I trust you, Ben, said Janet with the biggest, kindest smile. Even if this is the worst haircut I get today, it will also be the best haircut I get today. Ben thought about that. It was true. Just go for it. See how he's just like taking a hair at a time? He'd never get done. Uh-oh, so he's going to decide to go for it. Ben decided to go for it. At first, he kept glancing down at the copy of Splash, but after a while, it became clear that Janet's hair was never going to look like the lopsided ring around Saturn. And so Ben stopped thinking about the picture and just started cutting Janet's hair. See, he's looking, being careful, just a little at a time, and then he's getting crazy and really liking it. It was the most fun he'd had in a long time, and he was pretty sure Janet felt the same way. Eventually, Ben stopped, not because he thought he was done, but because he didn't think Janet would want to be bald. Well, Ben asked. Let me see, said Janet, racing to the mirror. Now that's got me scared right there, Janet. He didn't think Janet would want to be bald. Oh! Janet looked like a pineapple. She looked like a planet that had just been hit by an asteroid. She looked like a pineapple that had just been hit by an asteroid. I love it, she said, not like she was trying to make Ben feel good about himself, but like she actually meant it. Janet was looking in the mirror, touching her brand new short hair, staring into her own eyes like they belonged to a person she wanted to be friends with, but didn't quite know how to talk to. I just love it, she said. She seemed completely satisfied, but only for a second. This picture had me worried. Chapter 21. You know what else I've always wanted to do, Janet said, churning again. What? Cover my entire face with sticky notes. Ben loved the idea. It was so big. Why haven't you done it before? Janet thought about it. I guess I'm not sure. I guess it always seemed like a waste of sticky notes. But you want to do it now? Definitely. I won't be using them tomorrow. Ben measured Janet's face with his mind. How many sticky notes do you have? Plenty. Mom loves her sticky notes. What does she use them for? To remember things, said Janet, pointing to the other side of the room. Ben saw a note by the door. It said, "Don't forget to bring your umbrella." There's that little sticky note. Mom always forgets to bring her umbrella. Ben noticed another note stuck to the wall by the doorway that led to the kitchen. That one is for me, said Janet. I always forget the lights. Me too. Turn off the lights when you leave the room. He suddenly realized that the whole room was full of sticky notes he'd never noticed before. They were stuck to the bookcase, the lamp, and even the TV. Look at them all. They're everywhere. Ben read a few of them. The pointy peak of a penguin's beak. That squeeze in your knees when you're going to sneeze. Loneliness is like an empty avocado. What are these for? Asked Ben. Mom is constantly thinking up pieces of poems, she said. She writes them down so she can remember them for later. Ben liked that idea. It made him happy, but also sad. He suddenly hoped he would have a lot more days after this one to think up poem pieces and write them down. Janet handed Ben the pad of sticky notes. Start with my forehead. How do you like her haircut? Ben did. It took 20 sticky notes to completely cover her face. How do I look? To Ben, Janet looked like a person with sticky notes on her face, but he had the sense that Janet wanted more. Super! Fantastic! Like a great eyeless bird? Like a great eyeless bird. I thought so. Keep going. Cover my entire head. We're almost out of sticky notes, said Ben. There are more in the desk drawer. Ben opened the drawer. There were many pads of sticky notes in many different colors. Is pink okay? Asked Ben. Couldn't find more yellow. Yes, said Janet. Pink is great. One sticky note at a time, Ben covered Janet's entire head, and she still wasn't satisfied. Keep going! Ben covered Janet's neck and shoulders. He ran out of pink, and he had to switch to green, then blue, then purple. Keep going! Ben covered Janet's arms and legs, and then the rest of her. Before long, Janet looked like a great eyeless rainbow-colored bird. That's it, said Ben. I'm done. The bird spoke. I need to know what I look like. You need to take a picture. How? As much as Ben thought he should have a phone with a camera, his parents did not agree. My mom's camera is in the bottom desk drawer. Ben found the camera but couldn't make it work. He said the battery is dead. Drat, said Janet. I'll go grab my mom's camera, said Ben, suddenly remembering his mom and the cake and his dad and the ice cream and the rest of his life on the other side of the fence. Sounds good, said Janet, but before you go. Yes? I'd really like a marshmallow. Ben grabbed the last bag of marshmallows, lifted the sticky note on Janet's upper lip, and carefully fed her one. Thanks, said Janet. I really needed that. Come back soon, okay? Of course, said Ben, popping a few marshmallows in his pocket for the road. I absolutely will. And at that moment, he absolutely meant it. Oh, that doesn't foreshadow anything good yet to come. And that's where we will stop at chapter 22. He's not having too much luck on crossing that fence.